Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Unlocking Fitness podcast. I'm your host, Sarah Pitts, and today we'll be diving into 10 ways to hack the human psyche to skyrocket your coaching results. Now, great coaching isn't about mental health or technique or skill development or any of those individual things that we think of as essential parts of our coaching skills. Great coaching is really about doing what we can to improve the lives of people we coach so they can be happy, healthy human beings. Of course, the sport or element of fitness that we coach is our vehicle for doing that, but the reality is that a great coach can have a powerful impact no matter what setting they're in. The problem is that in sports and fitness, coaches' attention is being spread too thin. The separatist way that each individual element of coaching is being taught makes it more difficult for coaches to cover everything they need to without having to stop the flow of the session. I mean, I used to swim with my local triathlon club and would love it when the instruction from the coach was simple, like focus on your rotation. But I remember one time being asked to get out of the water mid-session so the coach could demonstrate and explain to me A, what I was doing wrong, and B, how to improve it. Now, both are perfectly valid ways of coaching, but the people we coach don't like being kept away from their training, and as coaches, we can only focus on a small number of things at once, which means that we're constantly juggling priorities, and that's when things can easily get missed out. The truth is that human beings all have crucial traits in common that coaches can tap into to make huge differences in many different areas of the lives of the people we coach. Now, marketers have known about these traits for decades, and as sports and fitness coaches, when we can find ways of addressing what really matters to our participants as human beings, that's when our coaching can have the biggest impact for them and us. So in today's episode, we'll be diving into the 10 ways to hack the human psyche to skyrocket your coaching skills. So my business mentor and good friend Jim Edwards wrote the best-selling book Copywriting Secrets so that, and I'm quoting from the book cover here, everyone can use the power of words to get more clicks, sales and profits no matter what you sell or who you sell it to. On page 16 he lists 10 reasons why people buy anything, and I'm going to show you how you can use your coaching skills to help the people you coach in more areas of their lives than you ever expected, which will not only help you look amazing, but will help them succeed in all areas of health and fitness simultaneously. Now, to make it even easier, I'm also going to show you how you can do all of this by focusing on one area of your coaching, injury prevention. Now, most coaches think of injury prevention as some kind of add-on or sideshow, if you will, like an afterthought from the main training, but that's a really huge mistake. And to pinch Jim's analogy, it's like trying to tie down a tarpaulin in the wind. If you tie down one corner of it, it's going to blow all over the place and not be under control. But if you tie it in 2, 3, 4 or 5 locations, suddenly it's right where you want it. So here's how you can use injury prevention to take the impact of your coaching way beyond the sessions you coach. So Jim's reason number 1 that people buy anything is to make money. Now, it might seem a bit weird that people can actually make money if you prevent their injuries, but if you're training people who have the talent to be competing at the top level in their sport, injuries can and do prevent them from competing, which can mean the difference between getting a professional contract or not, or losing out in prize money, sponsorship deals, speaking gigs after their professional life is over, and so much more. If you can prevent these injuries for people, then you can help them live up to their potential. And I've experienced this on numerous levels in my practice. I've helped a guy who was trying to gain a professional rugby union contract. He was struggling with ankle problems and couldn't make the first team of his amateur club because he was always injured. He was a personal trainer and writing his own programs outside of his rugby training. So I worked with him to teach him how to tweak his training to reduce the risk of injury. And using these methods, he went on to play for Canada in the Rugby World Cup and is currently playing professionally in America. I've also worked with a triathlete who was using her local race wins to finance racing at all. Another triathlete had a sponsorship contract that she was in danger of losing because of her injuries, and one who built a successful business on the back of her sporting prowess. I even worked with a young synchronized swimmer who was struggling to make the British team because of a minor toe issue. We fixed the toe issue and she made the team, and for the next couple of years I worked with her to prevent further injuries, and because of her success, she won a scholarship to an outstanding university in the US, which has given her the education and skills to have better job prospects and earn more money through her lifetime. So Jim's second reason is to save money. Now, even if your people aren't competing at the top level, carrying injuries is an expensive business. There's travel expenses to and from appointments, there might be childcare costs when people have to leave the kids with someone while they go to an appointment. There's the cost of the treatment itself, including any ongoing maintenance treatment sessions and any peripherals that might go along with that, like special insoles or tape or some kind of pain-killing gel. You know, all these little things, they mount up. I remember I had one lady who came to me for treatment. She'd already spent thousands on treatment from other therapists, but she'd come to me because she heard that I did things differently. And when I saw her for her first appointment, she'd just spent £400 on custom-made orthotics that were so thick she had to spend months and much more money trying to find shoes that these insoles and her feet would fit in comfortably. And she wasn't a particularly wealthy lady, and the money that she was spending on her treatments was significantly reducing her quality of life because she didn't have any spare cash to spend on the things that she enjoyed doing. So even though I could fix her foot, she didn't need the orthotics anymore. It didn't stop the thousands that she'd already spent. But with a little injury prevention knowledge, coaches can absolutely save people from this all too common fate. Now, Jim's third reason is to save time. Now, injuries create all sorts of extra little time sucks. Now, obviously, there's the travelling time to and from appointments, there's the duration of the appointments themselves for therapy, scans, consultations and stuff like that. And then there's all that waiting time in between. There's something many coaches don't realise until they've had their own injuries is that it takes much longer to warm up for and to recover from training when you're injured or have had injuries in the past. It can take longer to do simple daily tasks like getting dressed in the morning. I mean, that might sound ridiculous to some people, but I know this all too well, firsthand from having had over a decade of chronic back pain. Now, pain makes you move more slowly because you're either taking a breath to brace yourself for the fact that it's coming or trying not to aggravate it when you move. And if you can prevent these injuries from happening, your participants get to spend less time managing and thinking about their injury problems, which gives them more time to be doing the things that they really want to be doing. It could be spending the extra 5 minutes in a morning savouring that cup of tea before they have to rush out the door, or spending more time with their family, which improves their all-round well-being and improves their motivation for training. And of course, you spend less time working around their injury problems too. So the fourth reason is to avoid effort. Now, most sports injuries like muscle strains, sprains and tears happen because of an underlying joint movement restriction. If it's not possible for a joint to move in a certain direction, it has to find a different way to create that intended movement. For example, my ankle is restricted due to an injury I got about 15 years ago when I landed funny off a jumping kick in my martial arts class, and the bones in my ankle shifted. And despite numerous hours of treatment and huge expense, nobody could get it moving properly again. So the result is that I have one ankle that moves more than the other. And when I try to squat, my right knee won't bend as far as my left because of the blockage in my ankle. Now, the instruction to my brain, if I was trying to do a squat, is to squat down. So my body will find different ways of getting me to squat as low as possible. Sometimes this is a shift in body weight over to the left side, and sometimes it's just flat out cheating. So rather than bending my knees any further, my chest leans forwards to give my brain the impression that I've gone deeper in my squat than I actually have. Now, this alternative route to this desired outcome of this low squat takes my body longer and uses more effort than it would if my ankle moved properly. Plus, it puts more strain on other parts of my body, like my left hip, which over time can easily result in pain in either my hip or my lower back. Now, as coaches, when we focus our efforts on removing or improving these joint restrictions, we can make our participants move faster and more efficient, which means they have extra effort to spend on their training. I've lost count of the number of people who've said how much easier it feels to be training or performing at their best simply because their body moves more effectively. So the fifth reason is to escape mental or physical pain. Now it's obvious that preventing injury means avoiding physical pain, but what you might not realise is that physical pain is emotionally draining too. And most people don't even notice just how draining it is until the pain is gone. So apart from the discomfort of the pain itself, the mental toll of anticipating pain with every single move, from getting out of bed in the morning to standing up out of a chair, or expecting pain to kick in when you get to a certain point in your training, is really exhausting. But people who are in chronic pain or persistent pain are constantly processing how to adapt movement so they can move without pain. Now this processing might take place on a conscious level, or it might be so habitual they don't even think about it anymore. But either way, it happens with every movement they make, and the relentlessness of it is really draining. I mean, in my clinic I'd often see people who'd had chronic pain for decades, and they all had one thing in common, like a weariness. I could see it in their face, and their whole body language just seemed really flat. It's the same with people who are under a lot of stress at work, but can't do anything about it. When the pain went away, it's like they had a weight lifted off their shoulders, their demeanour totally changed, and they get what I call their bounce back. So when coaches can help prevent these pains, we can help our people to avoid this mental strain, which will lift their mood and most likely their motivation as well. So reason number 6 is to get more comfort. Now, low-level nagging pain is not only physically uncomfortable, but plays absolute havoc with your sleep as well. Now, people without pain don't think twice about turning over in bed, but anyone who's had any kind of chronic pain will know the feeling of dread and huge amount of alertness that it takes to perform this simple task. And having had chronic back pain for over a decade, I know this feeling really well. But any pain, any numbness, any tingling, any physical discomfort really, can make it more difficult to drift off to sleep. And any sleep you do get can be disturbed because the pain wakes you up, the numbness wakes you up numerous times during the night. And then it doesn't really matter how good your sleep routine is, you always just wake up feeling really tired, and feeling tired affects every part of life, including food choices. Now, I'm sure you've had days when you feel more tired than usual, and I'm sure your food choices have suffered as a result. You might drink more caffeine than usual because you're trying to stay awake, which might actually make it harder to sleep that night. You probably feel less motivated for training, for concentrating at work, school, or even at training itself, which actually increases the risk of injury, by the way. So you probably feel more irritable and therefore less sociable. You're more likely to complain if something feels challenging or complex, and this kind of negativity spreads like a virus in a team environment, which can drag the whole vibe of the team down, or even the session. When coaches focus on preventing injuries, we can easily decrease self-sabotage, like eating that chocolate bar when you're trying to eat well. We can improve recovery, we can reduce fatigue, and so much more. The gym's 7th reason is to achieve greater cleanliness or hygiene. Now again, this might seem a bit weird, but to those who've never experienced it, it can seem a bit ridiculous that chronic or low-level pain can be unhygienic, but I've seen it firsthand when I worked as a rehabilitation assistant at Harrogate District Hospital. I worked on the elective surgery ward, which meant I was working mainly with hip and knee replacement patients. I'd see these patients before they came for the surgery and help with their rehab in hospital before they could be discharged. A lot of my job was helping patients with what were called activities of daily living. I'd help them get washed and dressed immediately post-surgery and make sure they could walk, go up and down the stairs, make themselves a cup of tea, especially if they were living alone. Some of these patients have been relying on other people to put their shoes and socks on for them for years because they couldn't reach their feet without excruciating pain. And if you can't reach your feet to put your shoes on, you can't wash them yourself either. I remember one lady who hadn't had a bath or shower for almost 3 years because she couldn't get in or out without assistance, so she'd been having what she called a strip wash, which was basically sitting on the toilet seat and having a wash using the sink and a face cloth. But these problems don't just appear overnight. They're a gradual deterioration of a problem that started much smaller. Now, every single one of those patients on those wards in the hospital had been struggling with pain for many years. And pain like that really wears you down emotionally and can easily lead to bouts of depression. During these dark days, looking after yourself by doing simple daily tasks like cleaning your teeth or getting a shower or doing your hair, even when you're able to, can really feel like an immense amount of effort. And this emotional stress can make the pain feel worse. So many people start taking painkillers in an attempt just to get through the day, which can gradually lead to an addiction and a further withdrawal from society. Now, as coaches, we see these people at the very start of that journey. We might never know the true impact of pain on a person's life because, well, they just stop coming to our sessions and drift out of our lives. But we're in the perfect position to be able to help prevent the small aches and pains that eventually lead to these bigger problems. And if we do that, we can save the people we coach from years of distress or the indignity of having to rely on other people to get washed and dressed. Now, the 8th reason is to gain praise. Now, without pain, our participants have far fewer barriers to their sporting success, which means they can challenge themselves to do more. And when we do things that other people think are hard, we gain their respect and their praise, and if we're raising money for charity while we're at it, that's even better. Now, as human beings, we need reasons to do things. The scientists call this teleonomics. That's why many people choose a race or event to both motivate them to train and to give them a reason to push themselves. But this can be a double-edged sword. The event might give our people something to aim for, but oftentimes these events are expensive, and if injuries strike in the run-up to that event, the pressure to perform can force our people to hide their pain, push through it, or just manage the best they can. Now, I've worked with triathletes for a long time, and they'll often combine races with a holiday abroad, which only adds more pressure. And they'd frequently say things like, "Oh, injuries always seem to strike at the worst possible moment," because they pull a muscle or something either in the last few weeks before the race or during the race itself. And this always leaves people feeling disappointed and frustrated, which means they didn't enjoy the experience. But the reality is that these problems have been brewing as non-painful muscle tightness for a while before the pain kicked in. And when coaches can place more emphasis on preventing injuries in every single session, we can totally transform the experience of exercising for the people that we coach. Now, reason number 9 is to feel loved. Again, if you've never had chronic pain, you won't understand the torment of not being able to play with the children, friends, or pets in your lives. But playing together is one of the most powerful ways to feel connected to your social group. It creates deep bonds and memories that will last a lifetime, which can be severely limited by a simple bad back or knee. If you've got a bad back and you have to sit on the sofa while your kids or your grandkids are playing on the floor, or you can't help them build sandcastle at the beach, that can be the difference between you being a separate part of their lives or someone fun they can play with. These kinds of things are memories that you'll all treasure forever, and just being able to move without pain enough to join in with those activities gives the people you coach a real sense of mental and emotional well-being. If your people feel loved, they're more likely to focus on the training, and they might even put more value on their rest days so they can spend more time with the people that love them, which not only significantly reduces their risk of injury, but also skyrockets your coaching results. So the last reason, number 10, is to increase popularity or social status. Now, injuries are brilliant at making people feel withdrawn, especially if your participant's social circle revolves around their group activities. Pain will stop them joining in the social bike ride at the weekend where they usually sit with their friends and chat during the tea and cake stop at the halfway point. It will stop them from playing a part in helping the team to win. And pain can even help people feel like they can't keep up when they come back to training after an injury. And this sense of isolation can make people feel like they're not good enough to join in with the group anymore, or they've lost that edge. And sport is a powerful way to bring people together, but pain is a really powerful separator. And of course, the more someone says no to social invites, or they're deemed a person who's always injured, the less likely other people are to include them for fear of being held back or just rejected again. A community or grassroots clubs can be the biggest losers in this because they're run by volunteers. And these volunteers are usually people who love their sport so much they're willing to give up their free time to make sure it runs smoothly for everyone else involved. And these kinds of people, are really hard to find. So when committee members are struggling with chronic pain and they start to feel left out, they lose the love for the sport they once adored and they resign their place on the committee. And then the club is left trying to find someone to replace them, which is never easy. So now we've been through all 10 reasons why people buy stuff and hacked it to apply it to sports and fitness coaching. You can see that no matter who you coach, the impact of injuries runs much deeper than just your immediate training session. Injuries impact every area of people's lives, and that massively impacts your ability to help them achieve their goals. And I'm really not overstating things when I say that injury prevention is actually life-changing for people, and coaches are in a really prime position to be able to do that, regardless of how much you know about injuries themselves. Now, I'm on a mission to break down the specialism barriers of sports injuries, so sports and fitness coaches of all levels can play their part, no matter how small, in preventing injury. If you'd like to find out more, I invite you to get your free copy of my Injury Hackers Mission Guide at injuryhacking.com/mission. Now, thanks for listening. I look forward to your company on the next episode of the Unlocking Fitness podcast. The Unlocking Fitness podcast is a Most Motion original hosted by me, Sarah Pitts. It's based on the Unlocking Fitness book series, which you can get from unlockingfitness.com. At the time of recording, book 1 in the series is available, with books 2 to 5 in the pipeline. You can find more Most Motion at mostmotion.com and on Facebook at Most Motion.